When you hear the name Layer 0, what do you think of? Maybe you think of a successful messaging protocol with a total of 140 million total messages and tens of billions of dollars in volume. Maybe you think of a big airdrop and Sybil warfare campaign. Is it the strong community you think of? Or maybe the penguins come to your mind? Today I'm gonna tell you the full story of Layer 0 from the ground up to make your associations more complete. Introducing a poker-styled Rise of Layer 0. Before diving deeper into the company's history, we have to understand what Layer 0 is. If explained simply, it is a technology that connects different blockchain networks so they can communicate and share data seamlessly. Think of it as a universal messaging system with the end goal of connecting all the blockchains securely, cheaply, efficiently, and censorship resistantly. The most common use of Layer 0 in dApps is asset bridging, which includes NFTs, cryptocurrencies, etc. This is important for DeFi sector, gaming apps, NFT marketplaces, and other blockchain applications, as it reduces complexity and unlocks new possibilities for both developers and users. Is it commercially successful, you might ask? Well, as of right now, the total volume of assets moved through Layer 0 is more than $50 billion, with the total amount of messages approximately at 140 million. All of it happens on 100 plus supported chains. Layer 0 has its own token with a fluctuating FDV of $6 to $7 billion. They also have backing from the biggest investors, not only in crypto market but globally. They include Anderson Horowitz, Sequoia, Samsung Next, Coinbase, etc. But what did it take for them to come to such a success? Has it all been so easy all along? Turns out it is never easy when it comes to building a successful company. To unveil the Layer 0's history deeper, we have to understand more about the founders of the company. They are Caleb Bannister, Bryan Pellegrino, the mastermind, and Ryan Zarek. After studying at the same University of New Hampshire, all three of them had successful ventures prior to Layer 0. They were involved in co-founding Coder10, a company that specializes in building custom mobile, web, AI, and other types of applications. Buzzdraft, which there isn't much information about it in the internet. Raw AI, that was co-founded by Bryan and Ryan, but although Caleb isn't explicitly mentioned anywhere, he might have been involved in this venture as well. Another software development venture was Minimal AI, founded by Caleb and Ryan. As you can see, the Layer 0 core has a ton of experience working together, and they definitely have some similar background, considering the fact that they were studying at the same university and were involved in founding the companies together, but their professional paths weren't exactly the same. Caleb didn't leave the interoperability lab at the university, unlike Bryan did, and stayed there for 5 years until 2010 as a worker. Ryan had a similar path to Caleb's before co-founding Layer 0, except from the fact that he was involved in some companies where Caleb wasn't involved. Bryan, on the other hand, was quite different, and his background needs to be explained deeper. Bryan Pellegrino was born in 1987 in spring. From the young age, Bryan has enjoyed two things the most: debating about anything and playing video games, having received his first PC at the age of 5. Bryan's co-founder Ryan Zarek also enjoys debating. "It's the reason Bryan and I got along really well," he said. But for Bryan's perspective, the game of debate is also an opportunity to seek something deeper. That has formed the basis of Layer 0's truth-seeking culture. Whatever the game, Bryan took winning very seriously. "I grew up with a competitive father and a brother who's 4 years older than me," he said. "So I was trying to beat them, chasing down everything." And beat him he often did, but he did lose sometimes. Despite his competitive spirit, Bryan rarely became upset, even later in life when Bryan lost tens of thousands of dollars, or nearly all of his savings at the time, to a scam perpetrated by a fellow poker player. He was more stung by the sense of having been wronged by someone he trusted than by the financial loss. At 11 to 12 years old, when Bryan discovered the programming, his interests quickly switched from gaming to learning how to program. He didn't have the same passion for school though. From Bryan's perspective, most things in school were pretty boring. Bryan also liked to play card games with his friends in between classes. Bryan even played with his dad and his brother, as you can see from the picture. Since the childhood, Bryan has had a high tolerance for risk, and the events that I'm gonna tell you about are gonna prove that. At the age of 15, Bryan was selected to be a part of the presidential classroom program. With $20 in spending money from his mother, Bryan flew to the nation's capital. There he was interested in playing some poker. Bryan won a few bucks. "Okay, I think I understand the game, Bryan remembered thinking. The stakes rose and Bryan put up all $20 of his mother's money. Not only did Bryan not lose, he came away from the game with $60, which he spent on a great Georgetown hoodie. I still have that hoodie hanging in my house today, Bryan said. At that event, Bryan has found out about online poker, which changed the trajectory of his life forever. Having finished the school, Bryan entered the University of New Hampshire, where he was quite a good student and went on to work at the lab. But unlike his business partners, Caleb and Ryan, Bryan didn't want to stay in lab for long. He explained that he couldn't earn as much money as he wanted doing this job. That's why he decided to conquer the poker scene. Bryan went on to make millions of dollars on poker games, playing for the highest stakes possible, on the highest level of competition, and becoming a millionaire just at the age of 22. But one day, something unexpected happened.
And then April 15th, 2011, online poker gets banned in the US. So all of a sudden, like, all of my money is frozen. I have a mortgage for the first time in my life, and I have no income, no assets, nothing. And so it was the first big moment, I guess, that teaches you a little bit about like tail risks and self-custody and all of that. It's actually very interesting. Like, the entire poker world got exposed to Bitcoin at that moment, because all of our payment processors, PayPal, Money Bookers, NetTeller, Skrill, all of them were now just like offline, couldn't be used.
Then Bryan, Caleb and Ryan had on and off interest in crypto while working on their new ventures, until
we started to mess around. We like to kind of build toy systems. So we built this toy system of like, what would it look like if you had an entirely ephemeral system on BNB chain? Just like you treat it as an ad hoc, cheap execution environment, and then you move everything over to Ethereum for like permanent states. We built a game. Everything in the game would be thrown away, but once you effectively won, that would get moved over to Ethereum as a permanent NFT. And we realized as we're building that, there was no way to do that without a central coordinator triggering events on both chains. I'm like, well, that sucks. That kind of defeats the entire purpose of the industry to just have this central event coordinator sitting off chain. And so we're like, well, bridges exist. So like, this is a solved problem. Let's just like find the best thing to use. And we looked at all the bridges in the industry at the time, and we're just like, oh my God, like we cannot use any of this stuff. This is insane.
And the idea was born. The decision to build Layer 0 was made. They have raised Series A round of investment, which got them $6 million to work with, which later was extended by $135 million. The team started building, and in March 2022, Layer 0 V1 went live, commemorated by the following tweet by Bryan. At the time, there were only 7 chains live, and the promise to add more was made. Throughout 2022 and the beginning of 2023, the team continued quietly building the project until March 2023. At that time, Arbitrum has done one of the biggest retroactive airdrops in crypto history. People were freaking out. FOMO was everywhere. Every crypto news outlet, Telegram channel, Twitter influencer were buzzing about it. People were in search of second Arbitrum in the pursuit of making more big profits, which resulted in huge spikes in activity in other big projects with a lot of money invested in them. For example, like ZK Sync and Starknet at the time. The airdrop farming was mainly and still is mostly popular in India, China, African countries and post-Soviet countries. During all these buzz, in April, Layer 0 announced their Series B round, amounting to a total of staggering $120 million. You probably understand where this is going. The project got traction from the airdrop hunting community. Look at the spike of the amount of transactions made via Layer 0 at the time. It was pure madness. As Bryan later explained, the team wasn't ready for such events, but it could be a well thought out move to announce the Series B round after the Arbitrum distribution to get free exposure, as the money was raised way before April 2023. From that moment, people were farming the protocol a lot, and some people even created dedicated chats specifically for Layer 0. Every Primus message on Twitter was looked at under a microscope. Every podcast was listened to find the possible clues to an airdrop. Whether the LZ team liked it or not, to build quietly was not an option anymore. And after a long year of 2023, the team had to address the rumors about the token in an X post. It stated that the TGE was going to happen in the first half of 2024, but before that, V2 version of Layer 0 must be released. Let me tell you more about it. In the V1, the off-network infrastructure consisted of oracles and relayers for verifying and executing messages. However, connecting networks with different execution and consensus mechanisms, for example Solana and Ethereum, required each connection to adapt its security and communication to the specific execution environments of the connected networks. This approach posed scalability challenges and limited flexibility for developers. V2 addressed these challenges by implementing the Omnichain Messaging Protocol, aka OMP. This version decoupled the verification and execution layers, enhancing modularity and improving censorship resistance. OMP enables Layer 0 to facilitate communication between distinct networks with universal semantics and consistent security guarantees for all messages, regardless of their source or destination. So for example, if one decentralized verified network, aka DVN, goes down, it can be replaced by another DVN, and ensuring all the operations are safe. After dealing with V2 deployment and doing all the testing, the time has come for TGE. On the 1st of May, a snapshot of all Layer 0 user activity was taken, but it was too early to celebrate for real users. There still was Sybil's / farmer's problem. If you don't know who Sybil is, it is basically a person who makes multiple accounts active in the project of his choice, in this instance Layer 0, to get more profits and spend less money by cheating the distribution system. Because of that, Layer 0 team chose the semi-linear distribution system, which depended heavily on the amount of fees spent with Layer 0. In addition to that, the team announced the Sybil Bounty Hunter program. The on-chain analysts could find the clusters of more than 20 wallets, which belonged to one person, and hand the list to Layer 0's team. And if the report was conclusive enough, the Bounty Hunter got 10% of the Sybil's allocation. One more thing that surprised a lot of people is the presented opportunity for Sybils to self-report themselves to get 15% from their allocation instead of 0. That was ultimate poker move by Bryan, because based on the self-reports, they were trying to find more Sybils with similar behavioral patterns. Additionally, Chaos and Nansen helped the LZ team to identify Sybils. The day when the checker went live was a pure madness. The Layer 0 team was in office, almost sleepless, finishing checking the Sybil reports, verifying if there were any false positives. Bryan at the time had to deal with all the craziness in Twitter. He and the team even had to take IV drip not to waste any time eating. Bryan's team wasn't the only group of people who were sleepless that day. People all around the world were waiting for the checker, but the team kept delaying, and finally, when the results emerged, everyone could see the number of tokens they got. In the end, nearly 2 million Sybils were eliminated out of 6 million wallets. The total number of wallets eligible for the airdrop was 1.2 million. Everything was going smooth after the Sybil filtering until the TGE day. On the claim page, to get your tokens, you had to complete proof of donation? What the fuck? The community was justifiably unhappy with that, and here is what Bryan had to say about this matter.
The whole point of the donation was, rather than just, I give you something and the only thing on your mind is when can I get rid of this thing? What is the best time? Thank you for this time for me to move on. When you actually have to, even if it's 2 seconds, to put this donation and to think about what is Protocol Guild? I'm donating to Protocol Guild. There's like some amount of alignment formed. You've gone through an extra action, some amount of friction. You've you paid this donation, and now you have like some at least association to the thing that you're getting. And I think that was the expectation. That was the ivory tower sort of rosy-eyed view of what was happening.
Overall, it was a good and fair distribution in my opinion. I was even fortunate enough to receive the second airdrop, which was given to users who used Layer 0 after the first airdrop. The tokens from this airdrop were taken out of the pool of unclaimed tokens, a move which was wildly positively greeted by the Layer 0 community. And by then, everything seemed to be going well for Layer 0. They have had a successful product on their hands, a lot of new partnerships coming in, more and more adoption of their omni-chain fungible token technology, aka OFT, but the project lacked one thing: a strong community. Outside of airdrop farmers who didn't care much about the project after the airdrop, there were no strong community. The Layer 0 team saw that coming and introduced the rewards program for the community members. You can choose to be a build layer if you are a capable programmer who can sufficiently contribute to the Layer 0's improvement. You can also be a part of content layer if you're good at making content, arts, articles, etc. If you're able to help with the events hosting, addressing the community members' problems, or be very helpful in general, you can be a part of the community layer. There are role tiers list, which is ranging from intern to layer 0 god. Each one of them is rewarded accordingly. In my opinion, this incentive shows the desire of layer 0 team for long-term success rather than doing TTGE and abandoning the project like many others do. In fact, there will be more distributions in the future, as it was mentioned previously by layer 0's team. In my opinion, it is going to be possible to receive another ZRO allocation by participating in DAO votings. To vote, you're going to need some ZRO tokens, and as of right now, there are no new referendums. In the future, they can be found here or here, and using protocols with layer 0 integrated. And of course, you can be a part of 3 layers that I've previously mentioned. There are tons of layer 0 apps live right now. You can find the full list of apps right here. The link will be in the description. I'm gonna tell you about my favorite and most used ones. The number 1 app on layer 0 is Stargate. With the introduction of V2, it has become the best bridge in the world because of the bus system and high level of security while operating with big amounts of crypto. Stargate supports a ton of different chains, and it is the safest and one of the cheapest bridges to use right now. LZ Gas Zip. This app I don't use frequently, but when I plan on using multiple chains where I don't have gas on, this tool is very powerful. The cost of transactions here isn't among the cheapest, but it's fast and convenient. Testnet bridge. This one is extremely useful if you're participating in testnets. The faucets are usually congested, and having some Sybil ETH for a cheap price comes in clutch. Aptos bridge. The use case is basically in the name. You can bridge your crypto from EVM chains to Aptos in a convenient way for a fair price. Thanks for watching until the end of the video. If you have any corrections or additions to the information presented in the video, please write it in the comment section on YouTube, Telegram or X. Bye bye. Sorry, what?